Hi, my name is Rob Longley with Advocacy Pro Software. I'd like to give you a quick demo of our Campus Safety Pro application, but first I'd like to talk a little bit about the problems with campus violence. And the main problem that we're seeing is simply one of transparency. It's not a technology problem. It is a cultural issue about being transparent about what's actually happening on college campuses. So, what is the problem? So, 1 in 4 college women will experience some form of sexual assault during their time in school. And it's estimated that really only about 15% of those women will ever come forward to either report it formally or disclose it to someone else. And most schools want you to believe that that number might be true for other schools, but it's not for theirs because, quite frankly, it's bad for business to have numbers like that out there. So, how do we know how big the problem really is? And the answer is we don't. Again, it goes back to an issue of um, lack of disclosure, primarily because victims don't feel comfortable coming forward for a variety of reasons. And there's typically an environment that discourages victims from coming forward, even though it is a requirement to disclose this. And this really goes back to 1986. When I first heard the name Clery, I was a senior in college. She was a freshman. I didn't know her particularly well, but I did know who she was, and the name has um, been a permanent fixture in what I do since then, as she was murdered on our college campus in the spring after spring break. And basically, her parents were able to find that the school did not act in her best interest and was able to create a law that required all schools to um, report their statistics about campus crimes. Unfortunately, it's not as cut and dry um, as you might think, and there are ways around it. So, when's a report not a report? When a school doesn't participate in the federal student loan program, this includes some private Christian universities as well as service academies such as the Air Force Academy, West Point, Merchant Marines, some certain others. When a school handles a report through a disciplinary committee, many times the reports never actually um, make it into the Clery Act report. It depends what the disciplinary action is. And a lot of times you simply have staff dissuading victims from completing a report. They may try to either shame victims based on what they were drinking, what they were wearing, or you have no proof, he said, she said type things, or just to try and protect the reputation of the school. One of the issues with the Clery Act is that obviously you have to report, but unfortunately, no one said it had to be accurate. In theory, it does, but the reality is that it's easy to manipulate, and it's even easier to manipulate if you're doing records on paper and don't have an automated system to keep track of it. It comes down to, in many cases, a need for schools to preserve their reputation over encouraging disclosure. You know, we've seen staff that try to improve disclosure often see their grants cut or even their positions. IT departments are blocked from loading tracking software, and educators are frequently railroaded or fired when they try to help victims. This has occurred at Harvard. This has occurred at University of Kentucky, Occidental University, many other places, and University of Connecticut. It's crazy, but many schools would rather pay millions for a lawsuit than pay for a system that ensures their transparency. They typically won't invest in preventive programs because they would rather protect their reputation. The advantage of simply doing a legal case is that it can often be settled without admission of guilt. So, paying a few $1 million to not have a black mark on your record apparently is worth it to some universities. And there's also concern that when you create a climate where victims are comfortable coming forward, it will lead to more reports of campus violence. And this is true, even if volume of events doesn't change. This has been seen at the Air Force Academy. This has been seen at high schools where they've implemented programs to encourage disclosure, and it people are not comfortable seeing the increase in numbers. They simply want the numbers to go down and the problem to go away, but it doesn't work that way. The risk in not following through and meeting the best needs of victims is that depends on the different ways that you can be fined for not complying. If you fudge your Clery Act numbers, they're often hard to prove, and even when the numbers are statistically unlikely, the likelihood of you being fined is relatively small. There have been only a handful of large Clery Act violation fines over the years. More common are the Title IX violations because they're easier to prove when a victim is silenced or simply not given the support they need. It's usually the victims that come forward that are able to show that they filed a report and that nothing was done about it. And these are what often lead to larger civil lawsuits that can cost college campuses millions of dollars. And really, you just have to look at a few of the schools who have paid out millions: Penn State, Occidental University, University of Connecticut, and the one that is on the horizon probably is University of Michigan, because it's a huge number of victims associated with the Olympics, and I think you will find that it extends to college staff as well. So we'd like to think that there is a better way. Our system allows all campus violence that's reported to also be recorded. So you can work out things with disciplinary committees later, but everything is in one place. Victims can automatically be referred to services to cut down on Title IX violations, and service providers and police share all the information on the case on both sides. All the information is kept together, and this is what's often referred to as an MDT, or multidisciplinary team approach, where you have law enforcement, clinical staff, and in some cases you may also involve forensic staff, all working off the same system to create a better experience for the victims that may experience some form of crime. Basically, this is the old adage of an ounce of prevention can be worth a pound of cure. And for about the cost of a cup of coffee, a campus can have our system either cloud-based or on-premise. It's a complete victim case management system that links police and victim services together. And this kind of partnership can lead to a better climate and better experience for victims in the future. A lot of it simply comes down to is your campus culture ready? Is your administration willing to see reports of violence go up as you become more transparent? The numbers aren't actually increasing. It's just the number of reports would be. You also have to have a long-term vision of campus change. This ultimately will result in a lowering of reports, but you have to have a climate that supports it. And you have to be willing to put your reputation on the line to reduce your risk of lawsuits. And most importantly, are you willing to create a better, safer experience for your students? If that's the case and you're interested, please watch the next part, which is a quick preview of our system. It works on laptops, desktops, tablets and smartphones, and will give you the transparency I believe your college needs, at a price that I think is well worth the investment compared to the ultimate cost of potential lawsuits from not meeting the needs of victims in the future. Thanks in advance, and look forward to hearing from you in the future.